horrifying.
Olga Baclanova, Part 2. I've just mentioned that Olga got a cast in one of her most prolific roles, that of Lou in Joseph von Sternberg's 1928 masterpiece, Docks of New York. If you saw my episode on Betty Compson, you already have a bit of background information about the film. I forgot to mention earlier that Olga began to be credited as simply Baclanova in her Paramount starring roles, as a probable homage to another great Russian star, Alla Nazimova, who too was referred to by just her last name. Anyways, Docks of New York concerned a rough sailor named Bill, played by George Bancroft, who saves destitute prostitute May, played by Betty Compson, from drowning, only to get married to her on a lark at the local bar. Also at the bar is the lecherous snake, Andy, played by Mitchell Lewis, and his wife Lou, played by Olga. It is hinted that Lou had been a lady of the evening since Andy's departure 3 years earlier. Olga's performance as Lou has to be seen to be believed, in a good way. Her emotions in the bar run the gamut from happy to sad and everywhere in between. First, she plans to give May and Billy a happy wedding and wild wedding party, but then slips into a more tragic emotional state. Take a look at this very famous scene from Docks of New York. Right after May and Billy say "I do," Lou sensitively grabs May, kisses her, and sadly looks off into the distance as they embrace. Olga's eyes are literally everything in this scene. It's as if Lou is saying, "Gee, kid, I hope you make it," but also, "I can't believe another girl is going to fall victim to being the wife of an absent sailor." Also, contemporary film historians and fans have cited this moment as being an early example of queerness in the cinema. It's interesting to also think about Lou being a lesbian in this context, that maybe she is caught in a loveless marriage and has to support herself by sleeping with repulsive men and can't live the life of her true sexuality. In desperation, she gives May the kiss, which could be seen as a sign of affection or a warning. We really have no way of knowing what exactly is happening because Olga and Betty were just so good that the scene is left open to a multitude of interpretations about its meaning, all that could be correct. One thing is for certain, Olga speaks volumes with just her eyes in this scene. But Olga got to display her considerable talents even more in Docks of New York. Later on, Andy tries to rape May, who very valiantly tries to defend herself, but is saved by Lou, who shoots Andy dead. Later on, when the police suspect May and or Bill of Andy's murder, Lou saves the day again. As you can see here, Lou says simply, "I shot him, and nobody else is going to get the credit for it," before making one of the most famous and best exits in film history. Lou is finally free from Andy's tyranny and a life of desperation and prostitution, but her only escape is prison. Still, it's better than what she had. I can't get over Lou's knowing, "I hope you have better luck than me, but I doubt it," before giving one last look of disgust to the crowd and exiting into the police wagon. I'm not even sure I have the words to describe all the things that are happening here from Olga's acting. Her entire body was acting out the freedom and wicked satisfaction that she got from killing her abusive husband. As the people are judging her as she walks to her fate, her cool, collected attitude seems to suggest, "Shut up, none of you are better than me," without Lou having to say a single word. To make a long story short, Olga's portrayal was simply legendary. The Docks of New York was a box office success for Paramount and also a critical one for everyone involved, especially Olga. Motion Picture News wrote that Baclanova, Betty Compson, and others assist Bancroft with excellent acting. The New York Times positively referenced Olga as again being the villainess, or at least near as an approach to as there is one in this picture. Olga followed up Docks of New York with one last silent at Paramount, playing another vampy-type character, Grace, opposite Jack Holt in Avalanche. In a story involving Jack playing Jack Dunton, who protects his ward Verde, played by John Darrow, Olga's Grace gets revenge when she is slighted by her lover Jack and tries to seduce the young Verde. Unfortunately, the film is lost, but Olga again got good reviews, even if the film itself got mixed reviews overall. Variety wrote, "Baclanova is not for this picture, yet the picture can thank her for a share of its value. Therefore, they say her vampy character is kind of out of place here, but she ended up stealing the entire movie anyways." Recognizing Olga's star potential, Paramount decided to finally let her move into 1929, playing the female lead in her first sound picture, The Wolf of Wall Street. Not the same Wolf of Wall Street that came out in 2013 with Leonardo DiCaprio. The film, which reunited her with George Bancroft, was originally shot as a silent film and was reshot as a talkie. Unfortunately, it's lost, but saw Olga playing Olga, a woman married to the title character that was played by George, who was a greedy stockbroker. According to Olga's biographer, the film did well, as many or any talkie would have done in February of 1929. Olga got the chance to show off her beautiful, classically trained singing voice to the public for the first time in the song Love Takes the Heart. Fortunately, the film got mixed reviews, and Olga, while praised for her acting, was critiqued for her Russian accent. Variety said Baclanova is given good latitude and makes good, but the New York Times said Olga Baclanova has a fascinating accent, but some of her lines are indistinct. So Olga was off to a mostly good start, if not a bit rocky one, in the talkies. Takeaway from the reviewers was that her acting was outstanding as usual, but her accent was a little strong. But keep in mind, Olga had already been on Broadway and toured in plays across the U.S. Her accent was not too strong for those productions, so I gather that it may have been more of the sound recording at fault here, since the one reviewer only described some of her words as being indistinct. Another bit of evidence that points to her voice being fine for talkies is that Paramount immediately moved her into a star vehicle, 1929's A Dangerous Woman, aka The Woman Who Needed Killing. Fortunately for us, this film has survived and is available to watch. I will post a link to where you can watch it in my YouTube descriptions. In the film, Olga plays Tanya, a man-hungry, ruthless, duplicitous wife married to the Honorable Frank, played by Clive Brook. The film starts out with Tanya having an affair before rejecting the other man, which drives him to suicide. Frank agrees to take her back on the condition that she behave herself, especially since his younger brother, Bobby, played by Neil Hamilton, is coming to visit. I forgot to mention that the film is set in Africa, and it's kind of out of context. Clive's character works at an outpost and is involved with the local people and their tribe. The film itself isn't the most original, but Olga makes it work through her usual compelling performance. She took her usual femme fatale vixen and decided to turn it up a notch and be even more seductive and evil. She got the chance to sing again, too. Take a look at this scene in which Frank confronts Tanya after she begins having an affair with Bobby.
I'm going to speak to you. I'm going to give you one more chance.
It's no use, Frank. No use.
Don't you realize what you're doing to his life? His career?
What does he care about us? He knows the only thing that counts. That's the hunger of his own heart and mind.
Oh, that's right. Honor, decency, self-respect mean nothing to you.
I'm a Russian. I love with my heart, not with my mind.
Yes? Bobby's English. You've hypnotized him now. And when he comes to his senses and finds he's betrayed his breeding, those loyalties which you despise.
I love a couple of things about Olga's performance in this scene. First, I enjoy that Olga and the screenwriters have embraced her accent and made her character Russian, which she makes a little joke about. Second, look at how carefully she is examining her articles as she packs. On the surface, it looks that she is simply ignoring her husband, but look at her face and her physicality. She's not just ignoring her husband, but is also calculating just how much she can make her husband suffer and ruin the life of his brother simultaneously. It's subtle, but the way that she folded the article of clothing at the end particularly stood out to me. While the film itself got mixed reviews, as the story wasn't the most original, Olga got raves at the time. The New York Times did not see her accent as a problem. They wrote, Mademoiselle Baclanova sings, dirges impressively, and speaks with a charming accent. Their only issue with her performance was what the script had her do sometimes. The film is good, especially from watching for Olga, Clive Brook, and Neil Hamilton's performances, but it is very dated and a little creaky, as I like to describe and many others describe some of the early talkies. Another thing that's problematic is the Africa setting kind of makes some of it very archaic in terms of its depiction of the African villagers and tribe members, so please keep that in mind. It's not the most woke movie that has ever been made. Olga starred in one more talkie in 1929 for Paramount, The Man I Love, which saw her again as a temptress, but one that is part of a high society this time. The film concerned Richard Arlen as a boxer named Dum Dum, who is torn between the love of a good girl, played by Mary Bryan, and a rich bad girl beauty, Sonia, played by Olga. It wasn't really a change of pace for Olga from her last film, but she still managed to give a great performance and sing beautifully again. In this first clip, check out Sonia watching Dum Dum at the boxing.
Well, madam, how do you like the exhibition?
Oh, it was beautiful.
I think it's positively revolting. Well, come around any time for a visit.
Is it all finished?
None of that pale femininity for you, is there?
No.
Madam's a bear for punishment. Oh, wait a minute. Mahoney, be like a few more rounds?
As you saw, Sonia was completely out of place at a boxing match, and Olga's demeanor is actually quite funny here. It's a hoot to see her just sitting there snootily in her huge fur coat and jewels. Like I mentioned, Sonia gets the chance to sing. Take a look and a listen.
Когда встретила тебя, трепетно сердце забилось.
Olga's classically trained operatic voice is simply beautiful here in an early film, in every film in which she sang. But she's not pretentious. It's refreshing to see how cool and casual Olga made Sonia's singing in the scene. It's just a normal night where she sings. The film got great reviews with Variety calling it one of the greatest fight pictures yet released. Olga again got good reviews with Variety saying Baclanova affords the feminine menace situation. This time there was no mention of her accent at all, probably as it was either becoming less noticeable or the sound technology was recording it better. Stay tuned with me now for Olga Baclanova Part 3.